Hello, hello. This is Matthew Orr, the convention coordinator for the Indie Game Developer Network, back again to talk to another member from around the world. Tonight we have Wade Dyer, who is best known for Fragged Empire. So Wade, why don't you tell us what that game is and what's happening with it?
G'day, Matt. Thanks so much for taking the time to chat to me. So I'm most well known for Fragged Empire. It's my sci-fi RPG. I've got a few other settings that work on the same thing, same rule system. But so I started this project about 8 or 9 years ago as a bit of a passion project. I thought, like every GM is a budding game designer, and I kind of think of myself as a GM that got a bit carried away. And I started making my own book and game, and I thought, you know what? As a bit of a vanity project, I'm going to start this thing up, and the rest is history. It's kind of taken off a lot. Now this is my job. This is what I do. I'm from Australia, in Melbourne, and yeah, it's kind of the quick journey rundown what I do, but I can give more details.
Yeah, so I've seen a lot of your products in the, we have them in the IGDN storage unit, and they've come to some of the conventions. So you've got kind of tell us a little bit about Fragged first, and then I kind of want to hear about some of the other other things that go with it, right? Because you've got the C's and you've got the protagonist and antagonist archives, but like
bunch of different books.
But save that for aside. First, tell me what is the sort of the premise of the core game.
Okay, so my flagship game is Fragged Empire. It's my sci-fi setting, and when I'm at a convention, I always say, like, do people want the law or the rules rundown? So I'll give like the quick and the dirty of both of those. So lore-wise, Fragged Empire is set in a post-apocalyptic science fiction world. So it's far into the future. Humanity has died out, and you've got these different genetically engineered species, and there was a giant big war. And basically you had 100 years of Mad Max craziness. This is what happens after that. So civilization is just now restarting. The various species are re-emerging back into space. They're reconnecting with each other. It's got this dawn of a new age type vibe to it. So a lot of exploration, cultural tension. I'm really big on culture and how that's shaping people and stuff like that. So that sort of goes into my game a lot. And I will give you a really quick sort of show of some of the various. So this is sort of an intro to my second edition book, which I've just kickstarted earlier this year. PDFs are out for the rules and the setting now, but I hope to go to print next year. But these are some of the species that I've got. So I've got the corporation, you've got the Kaltorans and Legion, and as you can see, like really pretty art. So I have a graphic designer as my background, so I'm very big on visuals. And so, yeah, so these are all the different species. Then rules-wise, the game is unashamedly medium crunch. I always say if you can handle D&D and Pathfinder, you'll be just fine with this. It kind of sits roughly in between that, but it is its own rule system. And a lot of that comes from myself. I really like making new things, just me as a creative individual. I didn't want to attach to it a rule system to something else. I kind of want to do everything fresh and new. And so the game is medium crunch. There's no classes in the system. And the core resolution mechanic is 3d6 plus a bonus, like +2 to mechanics. And you're trying to get a target number like 12 or a 14. But anytime you roll a 6, you could do something special. So let's say you're got a flamethrower. You can either set someone on fire or melt their armor. Or maybe you're a psychic and talking to someone. You could use that 6 to pluck the surface thoughts from their mind. So that's a kind of spike of interest to your character. And as your characters level up, the primary thing that happens is you're going to trait. These are the building blocks for your character. And the traits determine what you can spend your 6s on. There's some items that can do that a little bit too. But the traits also come in different styles. So let's say you're a person who really likes narrative play. you can select traits that are narrative focused, like that psychic example I just gave. Or maybe you're a bit of a maths person, you like combat, you're a bit of a power gamer. You might select a few different traits that when they all combine, when the stars align, you end up with some big effect. Or maybe you're someone who doesn't like rules. You might select a rules-like trait that either gives you a couple of passive bonuses or actually simplifies the game in some way. And the reason I've done this is I want people around the table to have different types of play styles. And as the game progresses, they can tweak the game to suit their preferred style of play without negatively impacting other people at the table. I want that power gamer with the rules-like gamer, with the narrative gamer. Yeah, that's right. So the system, it's very flexible. You can build your own spaceship, very customizable characters. You make custom equipment. If you like something deep, Fragged is a very good game for that. And especially with second edition, it's much more accessible. Like that on-ramp, it's basically the holy grail of game design, is that easy to get into, but they're deep and satisfying. And I feel like second edition is much better at both ends of that. Especially the accessible side, which, it takes some, I've been doing this for 8 years now, so I'm getting a lot better. So I get to pour a lot of my experience into all this, my second edition. Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely understand. There's, we're about 7 or 8 years out from our first game. And so, yeah, I'm like, I would do it differently today. And I think that's normal. I think that's normal.
Totally, yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard anyone describe a game the way you just described it, with the different sort of like customized play styles for different sorts of players. I don't think I've encountered someone who had that as a goal before. So I think that's really interesting. I was going to ask, when you were talking about the bonuses, rolling the sixes, I was like, well, are those narrative, or are there like check boxes that like you unlock the abilities? And then you answered it. It's both. It depends on, or can be both, depending on your play style. I think,
yeah.
Like I said, I
think it's a different way. Like a lot of games, and especially this comes from sort of, computer games, especially have solidified this idea of like, you select your party role. Are you the talker? Are you the tank? Are you the damage dealer? Are you the support? Okay, which they're cool, and I'm not dissing those, but I've tried to take, and those roles exist within my game, but I've put a foot forward, much forward to play style and you as a gamer. And I think that, especially with tabletop games, I think those are more important. But that's just me. Yeah.
Sure. Well, I'm very intrigued. I've looked at your books before, like I said, but I'll have to give them another look next time I'm in the same place as them, because I think that's interesting what you're saying there.
Well, I've done much better at sort of sharing this in my second edition, like really realizing that this was. Here's a little behind the scenes thing. I think in many ways I made Fragged Empire first edition about 8 years ago, and then I did multiple settings that used the same rules and adapted them. Fragged Kingdom, Fantasy, Fragged Eternum, Gothic Horror, Fragged Seas, Pirates, and a couple of little ones. And in that time, a large amount of what I was doing was actually discovering not only what I'd made, but what was special about it. And I think I was always doing this play style thing right from first edition, but I didn't quite understand, one, that I was doing it and that it was unique, and two, that how much more work I could do to make it accessible. So I'll just show you. I know that you're a game designer, so I'm okay, and a lot of people watching this will be game designers, so they don't mind getting a little bit behind the scenes stuff. So here in my second edition rulebook, I've got this thing, play style icons. And it basically sums up, rules light, combo, narrative, or mix it up. Okay, those are the 4 types that I've sort of identified. And then in the back of the book, where you've got, you can make your items, this giant weapon list. Okay, so this is my weapon list here, and these are some pre-mades. But you see all the way down the side, everything's got an icon. It's telling you this is a good weapon for someone who wants something simple. This is a good one for someone who wants something narrative. This is a good one if you want something to mix it up, if you like something weird. And the mix it up, I didn't mention it before, but that is people who like to be really different, or maybe you've played Fragged a bunch of times and you want something, a more exotic option. Okay. And I've done that all through this. See these little icons, and that's all it is. It's just identifying what they are and just highlighting them for people.
Well, that's great. That really, I think that what you showed there really highlights your graphic design background for the that you mentioned. I would like to step a little bit back and ask you about kind of how you got started. You said 8 years in. So how long were you a gamer before you decided? You mentioned every DM is a budding game designer. So like, what's your sort of like route into making a game like this?
Yeah, so I started RPGing as a teenager. Yeah, that's a whole story I could go into about that. And I've always played computer games, and I really got into board games when I was in uni. But RPGs have always been with me. I did take a break for little bits, there, here and there. But I've always consumed games from a point of view where I like trying to understand the game design behind stuff and why did the writers or the world builders make certain choices. So I always like that sort of interconnectivity just behind the curtain. And I grew up when I was a teenager growing up and, a bit early 20s, we primarily played the hero system of RPGs, which is, points by using multiplications of like 1.25 times 2.5 in terms of creating your powers and your point costs. And oh my goodness, we used Excel formulas to make characters in this game. Okay. Sorry to the people who made Hero, but I actually think it's a bad system. But that's all I knew growing up. And as part of that, we never played modules. We never played pre-written adventures. We custom made, my friends and I, every world we played in. And every time we played a game, we had to try and constrain the rules and structure them to fit what we were going to do for that campaign, from superheroes to fantasy to sci-fi or what have you.
Sure.
And so I actually grew up in a culture of this semi-game design where you make it all yourself. A lot of the GMs, we pass the problem solving onto the players. You come up with an answer and then pitch it at me. Okay. And that was what I grew up with. And I was a small country town. We didn't really have conventions. The internet was still in its sort of budding stage. So my world, that's what RPGing was. And I've been quite surprised as I've sort of grown up and seen how other people play and stuff. I'm like, oh wait, no, there's other places. There's like pre-written adventures and organized play and conventions and and everyone plays D&D, whereas I didn't grow up playing D&D. And so I think that type of environment combined with my personality of liking game design and world building, it's just like that's what led me to be wanting to make my own game. Hopefully that answered your question.
No, I think that thoroughly does answer it. I think you're an outlier again. With that kind of how could you not become a game designer in that environment where like that's the normal thing to do, is to make your own things. I like that. And you mentioned conventions, so that's where I want to ask you next. What is the convention scene now? You mentioned you're in Melbourne. I know Melbourne is bigger than a small town, so like, do you have
so it's the capital of my state.
Do you participate? Do you get your your Fragged booth? Do you go to conventions as an exhibitor? Do you just go as a participant? You play games there? What's it like? What's the concept?
Okay,
like?
so we have a few different conventions. So the big one is PAX Australia. Unfortunately, we don't have PAX Unplugged. And so for us, PAX Australia is basically, it's the big one. We've just finished it not long ago. You have a giant big computer game scene and the big tabletop area. And I've had a booth there for many years, and I basically rock up my booth. I pay them lots of money to let me have this booth. and then I meet people and sell books and talk to people and do my little spiel, but because I've been at PAX a while and Fragged is pretty well known here in Australia, I have a bunch of GMs running my game all weekend as well at PAX. So this last PAX we had 2 tables running my game all weekend. I was very happy. I got told that Fragged was the 3rd most popular game RPG at PAX. We had D&D, then Vampire the Masquerade, and then Fragged 2nd edition. Right. So I was very happy with that. It's quite an achievement for me. And we do have some smaller conventions. We have Conquest, which is, much more kind of, staying in like a town hall, kind of very loose. And for those one, and there's also ArcanaCon, which I'm not sure if ArcanaCon's running anymore. We'll see what happens. Sure. And then we have another one up in Canberra called Conquest.
There's been some disruption in the last couple of years.
There has, and I think we're going to see what conventions survive and which ones need to rebuild and stuff over the coming years. But at the smaller conventions, I usually don't have a booth. I might have a booth, but just like temporarily, I'll open it up for an hour over lunch. But really, for those ones, I just want to come and game and meet people, and I think it's really so. PAX is not all, but it's largely I need to recoup my costs. But the smaller conventions, I really like meeting people. I genuinely like people. I like meeting them. I like talking about stuff. I like hearing what they're up to. Tell me about your game. I love when they talk to my game. I'm very passionate about what I do. And I work from home. And I've been working from home for a long time, for about 14, 15 years. And conventions are my opportunity to get out and say hello, So I really appreciate them. And I think I didn't realize it how much I appreciated them until the pandemic locked us down for a couple of years.
I think there are many people that I heard the same thing, especially this summer, when a lot of people skipped. I went to conventions in 2021, but quite a few people skipped them until this year. And then, people were saying that they were like, oh, I didn't realize how much I missed it until I was back again. All right. Well, I also want to ask you about, because you're talking about the local scene a little bit. You mentioned talking to other game designers. Is there as I joked before we started recording, like try to adjust the trade imbalance here, and send some more stuff out into the rest of the world. What is a local Australian game or nerdy thing that deserves more international recognition?
Oh man, there's a bunch of stuff. But I probably my go-to one that I like to recommend, because I think it doesn't get as much attention as what it deserves, is a little RPG called Parslings, made by a friend of mine who I know through the convention scene. Beautiful, does his own artwork himself. It's really cute to do with words and tattoos. It's very visual, so I think that kind of appeals to me. I think a lot of game RPG creators often come from a writing background, so I'm very partial to anyone who comes from a visual arts background. So Parslings is definitely up there.
All right, well, we'll search it up and put it in the links to check it out.
Sounds good.
So Wade, I really appreciate your time today, and before we leave off, I want to tell us where people can find more about you and Fragged Empire on the internet.
Oh yeah, gotta plug the link. So I'm on Facebook and Twitter and Discord. My Discord community is particularly active and great. So you just search Fragged Empire, you'll find me on those. If you want to buy my stuff, you can pre-order 2nd edition via BackerKit at the moment. So you just type in BackerKit Fragged Empire 2, or just look for my Kickstarter. You'll find a link at the top. Other than that, my other products can be found IGDN booths at conventions. Hopefully, as long as I remember to organize that. I've been a bit bad on that front, but otherwise, Modifius, they stock all my stuff. They basically sell all of my stuff outside of Australia, and they've just taken over my American warehouse as well. So yeah.
All right, well, there you go. check out
Sure.
more about Fragged, and if you want. Again, thank you for your time, and we'll see you on the interwebs.
Thanks so much.